Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's nice to meet you. If I haven't already met you, my name is Ryan, and this video brings us away from the drive-in. We're actually in the manager's office, as you can see with all the titles behind me. It's a little bit of a zoo in here as well, but I've kind of sequestered a little bit of the wildlife that she keeps around. So hopefully we don't get busted. Hopefully the manager doesn't mind too much. But as you could tell from, well, I mean, I suppose by the title, but as you can tell from the TARDIS that we are joined with today, I've got a little bit of a different sort of video for you. It's a little bit of an opinion piece that I really want to kind of go into today because my opinion has sort of shifted a little bit. So I kind of titled this video in defense of Doctor Who Series 11. And so let's kind of go into this a little bit. Obviously, what I'm talking about is Series 11, which is going to be, Series 11 for New Who. This is the first of Jodie Whittaker, the first female Doctor. Now, me and my wife both watched this when it aired. We haven't seen the 12th season because we got rid of cable, a long time ago. But I mean, I know it's already available for pre-order. I believe it comes out on Blu-ray next month, and I am actually going to be picking that up at not the full regular listing price of $60 or $70. I know that Amazon has it for about $45. That's usually a little bit too much for what I want to pay for, but I actually am going to be purchasing it at that price, and I'm going to explain why in a little bit. My initial opinion with this was kind of, look at that, the TARDIS can kind of help me out a little bit by propping that up. My initial opinion with this was kind of in line with a lot of other people's opinions that I was reading online. There were some people that were very much supportive of this, and obviously I was as well. I'm talking actually about the announcement of Jodie Whittaker back when we still had Peter Capaldi. They had made the announcement of Jodie Whittaker now taking on the role of the Doctor. Obviously, the internet does what the internet does, and there were some people that had some less than bearable things to say, but it was grounded in so much negativity that I'm not going to go into because we don't need that in the world right now. So when the series actually came out, though, and we're talking maybe we were right about 3-4 episodes in, we were definitely getting a generalized consensus that I was reading was that this was definitely a weaker Doctor Who, a very much less than stellar portrayal of the Doctor, not so much with Jodie Whittaker, or at least in my opinion, which I'm going to get into later. But definitely, I mean, we're talking something that did not feel like Doctor Who, and I was very much in line with that as well. We watched the entirety of the series, and my opinion didn't really waver. I mean, there were some episodes that were better. There were some that were actually pretty good, but overall, it was a very weak run, and it just didn't feel like Doctor Who. That was really the biggest problem. Or apologies, one of the wildlife had escaped, so right now he's kind of sitting right there with me on the chair. He's got some very, very large toenails, so if we got too much clicky clacky, you're gonna see some cuts with that. But let's kind of keep going with what I was talking about. Oh great, now I don't even exactly remember where I was. But all right, well, we're gonna roll with it. We're gonna roll with it as I dress in my Baby Gap t-shirt. This could be the new look. This could be my new look. It's like not Ramsey. What's that other the chef? I can't remember his name. The chef from what is it? Dinner Impossible or something like that. Doesn't he always like wear like a shirt from Baby Gap? Or it doesn't matter. So that was the biggest issue. That was the biggest issue, was it just not feeling like Doctor Who. Now, let's go into my opinion of it. Obviously, there were people that would disagree with how I felt and how a lot of other people felt as well. There were some people that were feeling that this was, I know New York Times boasts Doctor Who at its best right there, which is far from the case. Even though my opinion has changed, that is still very much far from the case. I mean, we are certainly not getting Doctor Who at its best but my opinion has changed. So essentially, so with all this time that we have stuck indoors recently, I have actually shown my oldest. I've been introducing my oldest to Doctor Who. Actually, started. I don't have any of Eccleston's run, or the very first series with New Who, which is something that I gotta fill in. But I do have the Blu-ray complete David Tennant collection, so that's where we had started. And I know, I mean, my oldest is only 4, so you could say that there's a lot of stuff Doctor Who that is inappropriate for a 4-year-old, sure, but my 4-year-old, she's cool. She's weird, but she's cool. I have a really, really cool daughter. She loves things that are very creepy, spooky, and she likes weird things, which is great for me. So showing her Doctor Who, I knew that the majority of it was going to go over her head because, especially, I mean, she's not used to hearing accents other than our own. And on top of that, you've got very fast talking and things that, even things that do make sense, she's not going to understand the words that they're using. And then it's also Doctor Who, especially New Who. So they're going to be explaining things that they're just kind of pulling out of thin air, and it's explained very fast, and it's just supposed to be confusing a lot of times, especially when the Doctor goes on a lot of his tangents where he's kind of explaining everything, but everybody's just kind of, what? Like, nobody understands what's going on. And so, but the action scenes and a lot of the aliens and the monsters and stuff like that, I knew that she was going to really enjoy. So I had picked this up when it dropped on sale price to $15. And so, I mean, I need to have it, so, because I love Doctor Who, and it was a good chance to revisit it as well, because for $15, why not? And the New Year's Eve special had dropped to $10, so I picked those up together when those were on sale. And when this came in, we were watching we were probably episode 4, episode 5 of David Tennant's run, and my daughter really wanted to watch the Girl Doctor, as she would call it, just the Girl Doctor. And of course, why would she not want to see that? So since we actually went ahead and just started this up the very next day, because this is actually a better place for her to be in, because with David Tennant's run, we already have Rose already well established, so you're kind of getting thrown right into it, because usually when there's new companions and a new Doctor, things get explained again, because the new companions don't know what the TARDIS is, they don't know what a sonic screwdriver is, they don't know what a Time Lord is, so she kind of gets to hear a little bit more explanation about things, even so much just the bigger on the inside explanation. So in that instance, it was very good. So we went and started this up, and obviously she was much more captivated with this portrayal of the Doctor. Obviously the female connection, I mean, she gets to see the Girl Doctor, and I also feel that it's definitely not as fast as Tennant's run is, or even Smith's run. It's not as fast paced. Things are a little bit slower. People don't just talk as fast as they do, and so she was very much into it. We watched the entire series, which was a brand new, me getting to watch it through a new lens that I'm getting into very quickly. Trust me, I'm not just rambling on this video. I promise you, we're gonna get to the conclusion of what I mean. And the New Year's Eve special, I actually had not watched when it aired. I think that was probably around the time that we ditched cable, but I had not watched that. So I've got actually a lot of good things to say about this one. But so one of the things that I always knew, that this was a very important portrayal of the Doctor, because we have there was a little bit of a ghosty coming down. We have a female Doctor, which is something that is a long time coming. I know that in an interview, and Tom Baker said he also has, why not the Doctor after me should be a female. So this was a long time coming in a lot of respects, and it's important when I'm just kind of sitting there watching my oldest connect with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, and being so excited to have this very strong female role that can do all of these incredible things and is so smart and witty and brave and all this stuff. I just realized, I mean, this is a fantastic time for her to understand these sort of things, to be empowered by these sort of ideals. And so with that, it really made me kind of appreciate it a little bit more as to what this series actually did in terms of Doctor Who. But I knew that, understood that when going in, but when actually showing it to my daughter really put a whole new perspective into it. Now, watching this again, this is still, in my opinion, when it comes to New Who, because New Who is very, very different from older Doctor Who when it was originally canceled. And I know that some of like the first 2 or 3 Doctors are very different from the last 2 or 3 Doctors prior to the initial cancellation. But New Who is a completely different beast from pre-cancellation era Who, because it's not always classic Who, but pre-cancellation Who. It's a very different beast from Tennant to now, very different. And so with that being said, I mean, Doctor Who was already established as being very different when it was revived. So in a lot of respects, my feeling of it being the weakest form of Doctor Who has nothing to do a lot of times with the risks and the new ideas that they try to bring into it, because New Who doesn't feel like old Who, so there's no reason why this being different is wrong. It's not at all wrong. A lot of the issues, though, come into play with, I think that they tried to put too much into one thing. So having multiple companions, we'll do that as the first point. Having multiple companions that's not new to Doctor Who. I believe probably in the newer series we really didn't get multiple companions at a time consistently until Amy and Rory. And Amy and Rory showed that it can really work, especially with that run. I think that was Stephen Moffat was the showrunner then, and so that could really work. We have 3 companions here, and that's way too much. That really is way too much, because then New Who is very much companion oriented. It always has been. They're really putting a lot more of their chips into the companions and fleshing out the companions. And I think they're always kind of doing that because we know who the Doctor is. However, it should always be focused on the Doctor, whereas the Doctor a lot of times in these stories really just sort of plays second fiddle to the overall ideas of what's going on, or really second fiddle to the companions, there to figure out what's going on and save the day. And that's pretty much a lot of times what the Doctor does. And this really is no different. I think that Jodie Whittaker does an amazing job. I mean, she's really putting everything that she has into this, and really, as the series progresses, definitely is becoming more and more comfortable into solidifying who she is as the Doctor, and really taking charge of that. But I don't think that she's really given a whole lot. The stories in here are, most of them are very weak. They all pretty much make sense for the most part. They're not too convoluted. They're very simplistic. Some of them are a little pandering, but they're not giving her a whole lot to go with on here. There's a lot of choices that the showrunner, Chris Chibnall, made on this that I don't fully understand. The biggest thing to me is having 3 companions, Ryan, Yaz, and Graham. Yaz, there's one episode where we get a little bit about her when they actually do go into it is into her past and see her grandmother's wedding, which I really do enjoy that episode a lot. We get a little bit more into her, but compared to all 3 of them, she's really much the cardboard cutout of the group. I think that really the whole, you could have gotten rid of Ryan, you could have gotten rid of Yaz, and just focused on having Graham as the companion, because he has the richest character who goes through so many different emotional struggles and a lot of identity crises for a lot of times on who he is now since the death of his wife that occurs in the very first episode. And speaking of with the very first episode, that's sort of where you're kind of going to understand that this is not feeling like Doctor Who, because the very first episode of a brand new Doctor is always going to feel kind of wonky, because we've got a Doctor figuring out who he or she is. They don't know. The regeneration cycle takes a whole lot off of the Doctor. So it's always not going to feel so much like Doctor Who. We do get in a really interesting new villain of the Stenza from Tim Shaw, but it doesn't really feel like the Doctor too much. But that's okay. I mean, from the very first episode, that's okay. You know, not only is the Doctor figuring out who she is, but now we're trying to figure out this new series that we have, these new faces, everything else. Unfortunately, though, for really the entirety of the series, that tone stays. It just honestly a lot of times feels like a sci-fi show where they happen to have a sonic screwdriver and a TARDIS. If there was no sonic screwdriver, no TARDIS, you just take those two elements away and she could just be renamed. Jodie Whittaker's character could just be renamed to something else. You would never guess that it was supposed to be Doctor Who in the first place. And that really is a shame because it just doesn't feel like it's trying to be Doctor Who. Maybe in a lot of ways it's trying to separate who, no pun intended, what it is that is trying to differentiate itself from the predecessors. And it certainly does. But that's not entirely always a bad thing, as I've mentioned before. I know I'm kind of ragging a little bit, and this is supposed to be in defense of, but my opinion is actually kind of in favor of this because there are some very good episodes. The Demons of Punjab is when they go back into Yaz's timeline. Very good episode. The first episode is fantastic. The Amazon delivery style, what was that, Kerblam? That was a pretty fun episode. So we are getting more into, and this is sort of what you can kind of expect, I suppose. We do have a little more politicized Doctor Who, which you could kind of expect. We do have a much more diverse cast of companions, and then we have a female Doctor, which is such a powerful statement, and it's such an important statement that makes me appreciate the show a lot better, especially through the eyes of being a dad. But where that's coming down into play, though, is that now I think they're putting too much of the focus on what they're trying to be and not enough focus into the meat, which is the story. That's why we're here. We're here for the Doctor, and we're here for the stories. The biggest thing as well, throughout the whole series, there are no, not that I can remember anyways, unless I'm mistaking something, but maybe I'll slip in here and try to go back in time and see if I'm wrong, but there are no recognizable enemies in the series. There are no recognizable enemies. These are all new enemies, and a lot of times there are no actual enemies. Sometimes there's just one person, like in the Rosa Parks episode. And that's where we're sort of getting into what I mean about it being politicized. Doctor Who has always been grounded in humanity, morality. There's a lot of questionable material that makes you question yourself and the actions that you do and those around you do. But they're getting a little bit more into this, but it becomes so one-layered a lot of times and simplified that it's almost a little pandering, and I feel that the Rosa Parks episode unfortunately does that. But that's a really good example, though, where it doesn't feel like Doctor Who. But again, I think that what we're getting here, though, is something that is very, very important, and I feel that this is only going to be getting better because there are some very, very good episodes. There are some very good ideas. Unfortunately, though, it's just not fully there. It has not become Doctor Who, but not just quite, though, when it comes to this, because then once you get to Resolution, I have jostled everybody inside the TARDIS, especially since we got a full house right here. Hopefully they're all okay. When we get to Resolution, this is the one that feels like Doctor Who. This totally feels like Doctor Who. This is where I think maybe this was all kind of leading to, which is why, especially after watching this, I can appreciate this a lot more. I think that maybe we did too much of building the framework, but when we get to pay it off with this was absolutely fantastic. In this special, which is one thing where they really tried to, again, make themselves stand out a little bit. We don't have a Christmas special, we have a New Year's Eve special. In this one we have an organization that there was a big great war. The enemy was destroyed, dismembered, and then buried by, I believe it was 3 separate tribes, and their ancestors were set to guard the burial site for generations and generations, but one did not make it. And as it progresses and we see, we get to get a glimpse of the creature and play very weird octopus looking type of monster, then we finally kind of understand. We get more. We get the first classic enemy that they're bringing forward in this incarnation of Doctor Who, of the Dalek. And this is an expansion on the Dalek legacy, on the Dalek's lore, with a brand new type of Dalek, a reconnaissance scout of all things. Anything to expand something, I'm totally for. I'm always 100% for, instead of just kind of doing the same thing of it's just Daleks. You're trying to do something new with it, and man, does it pay off. We get a very, very hardened Doctor, some very dark moments from the Doctor on here that's really sort of getting into who she is, and she's really, Jodie Whittaker is finally given something to where she can actually start acting like the Doctor and becoming the Doctor, and it is absolutely fantastic. We also do have one of the grimmest scenes in modern Doctor Who history that I can think of, probably the bloodiest. I mean, it's not bloody, but definitely the largest massacre that I have ever seen on screen and off screen when it comes to this. So everything that's been building onto this, and everything that they were doing with this, and also being able to look at it through the eyes of a dad and watch a 4-year-old girl completely fall in love with this Doctor, gives me a whole new insight and a much new appreciation, especially watching these episodes again and really sort of kind of enjoying what they were trying to do. I do have my gripes. Obviously, I've got my gripes with it, but I really, really think that if you weren't 100% impressed with this, or if it's kind of gone off of your radar, take everything that I've said into play, and I think that you actually will sort of actually enjoy this, especially Resolution. So it definitely makes me very, very anxious to sit down with her and watch the 12th series. Currently, we're going back to David Tennant, and she's having a blast watching that, or about as much as a 4-year-old can through a 45-minute hour TV show. But anyway, guys, hopefully I haven't been rambling too much. I really just kind of wanted to say a couple of things about this, especially since this is a brand new rewatch for me and a first watch for me. So thank you guys so much for joining me and kind of just talking Doctor Who with me for a second, or maybe the finer points of Doctor Who, or in this particular instance. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button for more content. Leave a comment down below if you have an opinion on this, if you think that I'm wrong, or if you're kind of more in line with how I feel. Be very anxious to kind of hear everybody else's opinions on it. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next video. Have a great rest of your day.